a company that has grown so big that they can no longer even know if their supplier, a factory somewhere, has a subcontractor. I mean, either you take responsibility for your sites or you...
In this Sports and Outdoor Mentors episode, I chat with Eva Karlsson, the CEO of Houdini Sportswear for over 20 years. She recently transitioned into the new role of Chief Creative Officer, enabling her to focus more on her passions, including advancing the brand's circular and regenerative initiatives. We filmed this episode in Houdini's pop-up store in central Munich. I hope you enjoy the episode. If you do, please leave us a review or comment. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. So Eva, you've been now involved in the industry for over 30 years and with Houdini, leading Houdini for over 20 years now. Looking back, what were the key events that kind of led you to where you are today?
Being part of this industry, the reason for that is being brought up as in an outdoor family. Friluftsliv is something that we speak about in Sweden and the Nordics, and I guess that's a way of life that is very close to nature, and nature has a natural place on a daily basis, but also, of course, in terms of adventures. But it's not like you put on your outdoor wardrobe and head out for a specific adventure. It's rather a way of life. And that's how I lived. So I spent so much time with my parents and siblings in nature. So passionate about that, passionate about the natural systems, natural sciences, beauty of nature. There's so much to take in terms of inspiration from spending time in nature. So that's why I ended up here.
Are you able to still find the time to spend time in nature and enjoy nature? Because I'm sure it's not easy, as with everybody. You know, we're all have let's say demands on us all the time, every day. But are you still able to kind of carve that time out and reconnect with nature?
I definitely do, and I think it's changed, because back in the days I could do like big adventures, of course, sailing across the Atlantic or spending a whole winter up in the mountains somewhere, and I did. But nowadays I think that it has helped me, this way of living friluftsliv. It's a much more, it doesn't have to be those big adventures. It's about spending time outside, and that I can carve time for every day. On my own, with my colleagues, with my family.
Yeah. During those 30 years, there have been a lot of changes, let's say, within the industry, and the industry's evolved a lot. Is there anything that's surprised you in how the industry's changed, either good or bad?
I've been surprised at the slow rate of change, I must say. Considering we're all outdoor lovers, considering all our customers and users out there are also outdoor lovers, we could have transformed ourselves into something much better and then become an example for other industries. And we haven't. And that's, to me, it's a sadness. There's for sure changes happening. And we have evolved in many ways. I think that collaboration is flourishing much more today than it used to, which is wonderful, and a big step in the right direction in terms of moving towards something more sustainable, maybe even regenerative in the future. But collaboration is key there. So that is, and then we all know the shifts from the analog to the digital, and different. Like apparel becoming one rather than fashion and now being separate. So there's a lot of things changing, of course. And I like change. I think it's really, you have to embrace it and then figure out how you can play a part in that change so that you can help it in the right direction in collaboration with others.
And what about the consumer? How has the consumer expectations changed? I mean, you touched on a little bit there, let's say the apparel industry being rather one industry than necessarily being split by different, whether it's sport or outdoor or fashion. The lines are very much blurred. But yeah, any other thing else that you kind of you feel, you sense that the consumer has evolved over that time?
I think that maybe we've been in a bubble and working with buyers rather than people, and shaping our businesses and our offerings from that market perspective rather than from somebody who has an idea of what they want to bring to the world, and connecting with people who then share those ideas and need those products or services or whatever. I think that gatekeeping function that has been around for a long time has hurt the industry for sure. Can I give you an example?
Please.
And of course, this is not, this is my hunch, I should say. When I started at Houdini, which was early 2001, and we didn't have any resources. We had an idea of what we wanted to create. That it was made possible, that we managed to get the space, it is quite strange, I think. But I have a theory, and that is that we designed products and we didn't stop developing them until they were on par with the vision that we had when we started out on the design process. And that meant that we were successful out there. What does that mean? Potentially, it means that brands around us were putting out average products on the market, thinking that we have our space, we're a leader in or something. So there was a gap there. There was a gap where there's opportunity to design the best product and connect with people who want the best product at a slightly higher price when they buy it. That is interesting, I think. So maybe we should embrace design and our ideals much more, rather than looking at price points, gaps in terms of product range, and then end up compromising with more or less everything on the journey towards getting that product on the market.
Mm. But so before joining Houdini, as you said, in 2000 and 2001, so you spent time working with some other businesses within the industry, so including Salomon and Patagonia. I'm interested, looking back at that time, were there things that you were able to take from that experience that you somehow brought with you to Houdini, and it influenced how Houdini is today, or how at least you operated within Houdini?
Absolutely. I think I've had the luxury of working for wonderful companies with amazing colleagues. And I was very young when I started out, first with Natur Company, to were the distributor in the Nordics for Patagonia, and then moving towards the consultancy for Patagonia for several years. And two brands that are amazingly different. One very purpose-driven, Patagonia, in terms of design and product and sustainability. And then one, Salomon, that was very much into market and understanding youth culture and understanding users and consumers. And we did great stuff, and I really enjoyed it. But I also could feel that there were things that I found were compromises, unnecessary compromises. So when I came to Houdini, it was really interesting to see how we could maybe become much closer to the user, understand that user much more profoundly, and design products accordingly. And I would like to add that that user is also us. We're not designing for a group over there that we don't know. We're designing for people like ourselves. And maybe that's also a secret for companies in the future, to not try to be everyone, for everything for everyone, but rather find your niche and really do it well. And then not compromise. Just have a very clear idea of where you want to go with each product and with your company in the long term, and then take that journey.
You've touched on this maybe a little bit already, but I'm interested, today it's clear Houdini is, I think, very much a leader from whether it's a sustainability perspective or a social responsibility perspective. Was that something that when you joined, and I know it was the early days, you saying, there weren't resources in place, but was that kind of ethos, that vision, something that was already there from the founders, or was that something that you really brought, again, based on your observations from working with Patagonia Salomon and etc.?
No, it was already there from the start. Friluftsliv has a great place in that story on having a more natural and close and genuine relation to nature. But then how it was possible to incorporate into business has evolved, of course, with technology, one thing, and then learning much more about the biosphere and how we need to understand it more properly and in order to work with it rather than against it. I think that is clear. And just the fact of Houdini back in the days, it was about dancing with the mountains, not conquering the mountains. And conquering the mountains was kind of the way of portraying mountaineers and outdoor pursuits, sometimes even today.
Absolutely.
So we have been thinking about our business and our approach as dancing with nature or dancing with the mountains. So in that sense, it was there all along. But nowadays, and since 2001, when I came on board and we decided that either it's going to be hard work to build this company, either we do it in a way where we become part of the solution rather than the problem, or we don't do it at all. That was the decision we made. And we didn't have all the answers for how to do that, of course.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. But it's also, I think, clear, I'm sure, for most people that's a very difficult decision and a very difficult thing to do, because it would be much easier, as demonstrated by a lot of other companies, to not do business and develop a brand like that. So how have you been able to kind of maintain that discipline and that steadfast focus on those initial, on that initial vision? And I love that kind of dancing with the mountains. I love that image and that philosophy. But over the years, and particularly I'm sure at times when business has been more challenging than other times, it must have been really difficult to maintain that steadfastness. So how have you been able to do that, would you say? Or maybe not?
It hasn't been that hard. When you realize that everything we do today, more or less, is harming nature and harming the places that we love, the creeks we fly fish in or the glaciers we ski on. If you bring that to work, that realization, and the dream of doing something very differently, transforming into something that is, symbiotic, finding that symbiotic state with nature, then I think it's possible to endure a lot of hard work and challenges in the daily operations, because you remind yourself constantly that we're heading in the right direction. And this is, I think, the adventure and the journey of our lifetime, really. Maybe all of ours. I mean, every summit has been summited already. Every place on earth has been explored. But this journey, the transformation towards dancing with the elements or dancing with nature, that is our adventure of this generation. And if we don't do it, there won't be another adventure. So then it makes things easy. How on earth could you compromise with that?
I agree, but also fundamentally there are still a lot more people, I would say, unfortunately, that don't than do, or a lot more businesses. And I one thing that strikes me then, I think, when you're looking for people to join Houdini, it's clear that you need to have people that have the same philosophy, the same mindset. But that's pretty difficult, I would say, to identify, because it's very easy for anybody to sit here and say, oh yeah, I completely agree with you. That makes sense. We're 100% aligned. But in reality, I think it's probably quite difficult. So when you're looking to bring people on board Houdini to help you on this journey, what are you looking for?
I think we're looking for individuals who share our vision. I think that if you look at our company and our team, you can describe it as a collective of like-minded who share passions, not maybe the same sports, but the same passion for sports and outdoor life. And it's at least not even only in our home market. In general, I would say that it's very clear to people out there who we are and on which journey we're on. And that has been a very attractive journey for many, not only young people, I would like to add. It's clear to us that we have people that have done amazing careers, who are willing to reduce salaries and a lot of other things in order to be part of our journey. There's an awakening happening. But then that it's been clear who we are and the journey we're on, meaning that we also find like-minded, or they find us rather.
Okay.
We have not been that. It's not been necessary for us to go out and recruit that often. We find the most amazing people by them connecting with us.
How would you define your own leadership style?
I very seldom think about this in terms of me being a leader. I think it's also very much legacy to have, the CEO standing on a stage talking about something when there's a whole team of people, not only the core team, but also our partners and also our customers. Everybody's part of a journey together. But in terms of my responsibility as a CEO, I need to make sure that process that we see everywhere in nature, where knowledge is shared, values distributed, there's constant evolution. That has to be part of the workplace, the way I see it. But what does that mean? That yes, we can have a very strong, tight community vibe, like creative collective. But I can sometimes see that we cannot, close that bubble and only hang out with ourselves, but really make sure that we also take in other perspectives. Sometimes perspectives that might feel a bit awkward or not right, but in order to understand and evolve together, that is, of course, really, really important. So that has been part of my role. I've told myself that I need to make sure that we constantly widen our perspective and have a more holistic approach to understanding. And that could be working with a car company, and it is. We can learn a lot from each other, and it's about hanging out and learning from indigenous, because there's so much wisdom to learn from there. So, that widening of perspective and knowledge sharing, that I think has been an important part of what I wanted, what I want to achieve, at least.
So still on you and on your role, what would you say is your favorite part of your role, but also the least favorite part of your role?
My favorite part of my role is envisioning a better future together with my wonderful colleagues, working in teams to innovate new solutions, find more smarter solutions or more beautiful products. And I love that, hooking up with people, whether it's within the team, which is, of course, always the case, but also external partners and work on those types of projects. I really love that. And just having that community feeling. What I don't appreciate is what is that? I love my work, so it's. But I guess I'll have to come back to that being portrayed as the one man or one woman that is the reason for it all, which is never the case.
Yeah. Has it been important for you to make sure that, when you're collaborating with people, okay, Hannah was already actually on board, but that you're looking for really complementary skills to what you bring? Is that something that's very conscious for you?
Yes, it's very conscious, and that's a necessity because we're a fairly small company working in an industry with giants that we call colleagues in the business because they are. And I don't know how many, you know more about that than me, but we are 45 people at Houdini. And we managed to create amazing products, an amazing storytelling as a brand, sharing knowledge, being open source. We do a lot of things with those 45 people. And maybe there are 450 at many of our competitors or colleagues in the business. So that means we have to be really, really focused on what we want to do and not do other stuff that is unnecessary. And we need to really, really make sure that we complement each other and then just go full speed ahead.
So that's really interesting. So because I think that focus on only doing what you really need to do and what really adds value, I think that's something that a lot of businesses need to kind of reflect on, because I think, especially at a time where the market is challenging, you need to look at that and really identify, okay, who are we? Where do we add the most value? What do we bring? But how do you define what that is? What's the process of saying, okay, yes, we're going to do this. No, we're not going to do that.
It's always hard. In a team full of creative ideas and dreams of moving ahead faster in the right direction, it is hard. But it makes total sense because we also want to deliver quality in everything we do. So it doesn't mean that we say, no, we will never do this. We might, but we need to do this. What do we have hands-on right now first? And so plan, I think that in terms of mentality, we have our values. It's do good, play hard, push boundaries, and have fun. And then in this, to explain this, I would like to focus on playing hard, which is our way of thinking that our mentality as athletes, we need to bring that to work. And as an athlete, when you want to sail across an ocean or climb a mountain or whatever you want to do, you plan to do, it's about hard training, it's about planning properly, it's about execution, but it's also about, evaluating afterwards for the next ascent or whatever. And that mentality has been really, really important for us to bring that drive to work. And of course, part of the success also being 45 people and managing everything that we do. Yeah. And then we come back to focus, because of course an athlete doesn't do tons of different things. They make sure that they do the right things in order to reach those dreams. Yeah. But like I said, it's hard. And there's so many things that we would have been doing already if we had the resources for it.
Yeah.
But then we can either share it and somebody else can do it instead of us. That happens sometimes, or we save it for later. And there's a lot of things saved for later that I look forward to do during the next couple of years.
I think in addition to the product, an area that I'm really interested in is the circular business model approach that you've piloted in Stockholm with Circle. So this is a store where you can buy a new product, but you can also buy used products, you can rent products, and I think there's even maybe subscription model, and there's obviously the opportunity to repair as well. So how do you see that evolving? Because I think those things are admired by a lot of people, I think, but there's this question of, can it be a sustainable business model? So how are you finding that? Because it's been, what, 6 months, maybe a little bit? No, longer than that. No, a year. No, it's almost a year.
Yeah, it's almost a year.
Yes.
And looking back, we've been exploring circular business models since a decade. So we introduced rental, and of course repairs has been part of our business since day one. But rental and reuse was introduced 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago. And then we learned from that and realized that from a user or customer point of view, we were pushing customers into different rabbit holes. If you're renting, you're going this way, especially online. And so it wasn't a seamless user-centric model. So what we did with Houdini Circle was trying to move towards that user-centric, seamless experience where you can do it all at depending on who you are and what you're going to do and what makes sense for you as an individual. And we also, looking back at those 10 years, we also learned that is the only way that it can become actually a part of the sustainability journey that we're on. Because for a mountain guide who works in shell layers 24/7, of course, it's not going to be the right thing for him or her to rent. He might have a lifetime lease, which is more or less what we're doing, although it's called purchasing. So for him, that makes sense, but he might go on on some kind of vacation that he seldom goes on, that mountain guide. And then he will rent for that. And then there's people who'd rather subscribe because they have a small place at home. They only want to have the stuff that they really, really need for this type of weather and this season. And then they shift from season to season with the help of us. So I think it's really, really interesting to explore how we can enable people, empower people to have a more easier way of life, creating more opportunities for adventure without adding tons of gear to people's wardrobes and using tons of money from their wallets. And that is when we started out with circular business models. One of the reasons was also that we like to see ourselves as an inclusive brand. But of course we're not when you think about how much it costs to buy a new product. And if over time, the cost per use is not high at all. But at the time of investment, of course, it is expensive. So that means that we are hindering a lot of people from buying good stuff that performs, but also is the right choice in terms of sustainability. So with rental, with reuse, we suddenly had an entry-level price point without compromising anywhere. So that was really interesting to start out with, and that's how we're growing it. And then you asked about the business viability of this. And one thing is that some customers and users out there are more than ready for this. Others are not at all. So we're not pushing this on people. We're rather cultivating this in a way that maybe inspires and ignites an idea of the opportunity to do it in a different way, but then not pushing it, but rather evolving organically. And then when it comes to policies and all the aspects of the financial aspects, we're in a state where the system is pushing us back in the wrong direction. So this business model will be much more profitable and create value, also monetary value, much more so when we have the right policies in place. Because nowadays we still buy virgin resources at a lower price than recycled resources. We can destroy ecosystems and compromise with people, and it doesn't cost companies anything. And of course, that's crazy. So we're preparing for policies that are going to be better, and we're trying as often as we can to make sure that policymakers understand that they have a responsibility to make this happen.
It must be quite tough then to see situations like what's happening obviously in the US with Mr. Trump returning for a second term.
We have situations like that sit closer to home. The Swedish government right now is not working in the right direction. They're compromising with a lot that has been built up in the Nordics and Sweden for centuries, or at least 1 century. But yeah, I think that we wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't have been able to manage this for this long without focusing on what's good. I mean, you have to acknowledge problems and acknowledge what your negative impacts or somebody else who's out there who's hindering you on your journey. But I will never. I refuse to let them take my energy. I'd much rather focus on all the brilliant people out there, and there are so many of them. They might not be in power everywhere, but there's also a force from, groundwork that is happening, and then amazing forefront companies in every sector. So focusing on that and networking and doing more things together, I'm hopeful. Although this year it doesn't make me think that we're heading in the right direction with fascist regimes growing and wars everywhere. And the southern hemisphere still being compromised with. We have so much knowledge that we're knowledge, but not that much wisdom, and the common sense that we should be applying to more or less everything is there, but it's not practiced.
Maybe on the topic of wisdom, when you're maybe facing a difficult decision or a challenging time professionally, what resources do you have to help you either take decisions or get you through those difficult periods? Do you have mentors or coaches that you've worked with, or how do you kind of get through those periods and address those tough decisions?
I have younger people in my team that I choose to see as mentors because they bring things that I cannot see properly, and then there's so much experience and people that I've had the honor of working with back in throughout my working life, so to speak. That is still an inspiration for sure. But and then nature. I think the best is when I've been out in nature, immersing myself in nature. That is the time that I can have the clearest mind and make the most right decisions. So nature is a source in itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a network of wonderful people and inspirational people that I might not know that still can bring guidance or whatever.
What do you see will be the biggest challenge for you leading the business with your great team over the coming 5 years?
I think growing a company could, there's a risk that you kind of lose your edge or lose the relations even within the team because it's growing. Becoming more average just because the conventional way of becoming a larger business is becoming more average or slightly starting to compromise here and there. Yeah. So that's probably one of the things to look out for and make sure that we don't. I mean, going mainstream, we're constantly, like I said, we're marinated in corporate culture. And then we have the everyday consumerist lifestyle pushed upon us. And of course, that's part of life everywhere. And we have to remind ourselves that question conventions and make sure that we realize when we're lured into conventions that we don't agree with. And that goes for a company as well. So that's probably going to be a challenge looking forward as well. Yeah. But I'm not worried. I'm not the worrying kind. I think it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that we'll make it.
Okay, you have 48, you said 48 employees? 45, sorry. But anyway, around there.
Yeah.
There's still scope for growing that without too much risk, I would say, of that being diluted.
Absolutely.
And
then there's like digital solutions. There are so many things today that we didn't have a few years ago, and nobody needs. Well, maybe we don't need to fit all of us on a bus the next 10 years.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to make sure that those human connections and that feeling part of something important and knowing that you are an important part of that journey.
Yeah.
That is going to be, and you could lose that.
Yes.
We're not going to lose that.
Yeah. But from a business point of view, what is your vision? Because of course the bigger the business gets, the more difficult I think that it is to maintain that. This is clear, which is why you highlighted it. So does that mean that in your mind, actually it's certainly not growth for growth's sake? I think that's very clear. But do you have a vision for how you would like to see the brand in terms of its scale and the impact that it's having in the foreseeable future?
Well, we're on a journey towards regeneration, and we don't like to compromise. So on this growth journey, which is not about monetary growth only, it's about growing our opportunity to create ripples, share knowledge, influence colleagues in the business to work with us on this journey. Together with others in the outdoor industry, inspire other industries to take the same journey or go on the same journey. So I think we will have to. We will for sure have to watch out for this, but being uncompromising, it doesn't mean that we will accidentally grow into a state where we're not ourselves anymore. We will make sure to stop and assess before we end up in doing a big mistake like that.
Yeah,
I think that's part of our way of working. I think all the time. I hear, but
well, thinking's a good thing.
What do you call it? The precautionary principle. That's what it's called in English. The precautionary principle can, of course, be applied to chemistry, but it should be applied to scale and size and growth as well. And we're applying the precautionary principle across the board. So it will apply here as well. A company that has grown so big that they can no longer even know if their supplier, a factory somewhere, has a subcontractor. I mean, either you take responsibility for your size or you don't. And we're taking that responsibility, and we will continue doing that.
So on that topic, so how do you see the sustainable apparel business or market developing? And you've talked already about the fact that you would like to see Houdini somehow with a bit of a almost like an open source ethos where you're happy to kind of share what you're doing and how you're developing with others. But how do you see that the sustainability hopefully developing into a more regenerative even? How do you see the apparel business developing like that as a whole?
The sector in its entirety.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, like I mentioned, I think that there's more collaboration. I can see more collaboration today than I did. It was much more about competition and having exclusive rights to something and so forth. So our open source is not a way of idea of ours that we might want to apply. It's a principle of ours. So when we have developed a fabric together with a wonderful supplier, spent years together on it, we just simply won't ask for exclusivity. We want to share. And I think if you look from a responsibility point of view or a sustainability point of view, that's the only choice. And the other one, you have to really, really consider what you're doing if you start asking for exclusivity on sustainability solutions. But being a responsible business is about more than that. And what I think is many times I do believe that the interpretation of being a sustainable business means that you're less creative, you have less innovative performing fabrics and products and so forth. But I really find it, on the contrary, we have, thanks to our very strict and narrow framework in terms of planetary boundary science and our vision of becoming regenerative, we have become much more creative within that space. And we end up deciding on finding a solution for one specific problem. And at the end of those projects, and that is always the case, we have solved that problem, but we've also added value elsewhere. I can have, there's so many examples of this, microplastics, and making sure that we design mid layers that don't shed microfibers. And then suddenly you have a fabric that is monomaterial instead of several materials, so it becomes circular by design, more comfortable next to skin, more comfortable from a layering perspective. There are so many things that we just take for granted that this is the best we can do, and we can do much, much better. And with our tight framework, we ignite that creativity in a way that I don't think you do if you just end up with a conventional. And then we also attract the best designers, because who doesn't want to create the best products after 5 years in design school? They are intrigued by the challenge that we provide.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think all future innovations are either fundamentally linked to sustainability or are just driving that topic forward. There shouldn't be anything outside of that in an ideal world.
And I guess our innovation process doesn't always start with sustainability. It's just as often that we, as users out there, we realize that this doesn't work really as well as we should. A shell layer shouldn't be noisy so that you don't hear the wind or your companion talking or anything like that. We need to create the soft, silent shell layers. Let's do it. And yes, then we have our principles in terms of circularity and so forth. So it becomes a more complex project, innovation project. It's not about only solving the silence issue or noise issue. But then that's also an example of where we can add value in so many different ways. So leaning back and relaxing and just doing some small innovative additions to the conventional technologies it's not interesting for us. There's much more we can do, which I think is cool.
Who's influenced you the most professionally, would you say? Is there anybody that stands out?
Well, back in the days when I was at Patagonia, I had the opportunity to, from afar, see, I was young, just out of school, but I could see Chris McDivitt, who is now Chris Tompkins, who was CEO at Patagonia. Amazing person, humble, intelligent, team person who led an amazing company, which is still an amazing company today. That's one. I don't know. I have so many. Young colleagues of mine today, of course, that I have the pleasure of working with on a daily basis. But not only, I don't think I bring or take inspiration from only the corporate sector. There's people in science and research that inspire me immensely. Activists that inspire me immensely. Earth system scientists that have brought so much knowledge to our company so that we can move towards that vision of regeneration. Yeah. There's amazing people to be inspired of.
What's the most valuable piece of advice you've ever received?
I get reminded of a quote that I sometimes use, and it's a quote by Nora Bateson, who's a complex systems researcher. Nora Bateson says that it's not about cracking the code. Maybe I'm saying it incorrectly now. It's not exact anyways, but it's not about cracking the code. It's about catching the rhythm. Okay. And I really like that for so many reasons. Catching the rhythm is much more about the state you have to be in when you're ski touring. You have to understand the conditions and the snow, how that changes from a north face to a south facing face and so forth. Or a surfer, you can all of the things that you do in nature, off trail, off the beaten track. You have to catch the rhythm of nature. But as the CEO, if you look at the conventional or legacy expectations of a CEO, it's about knowing exactly what you're going to do in the next 5 years. And maybe that worked 50 years ago or so, or maybe even 20 years ago. But nowadays, it doesn't work. So I think it's interesting to embrace the fact that we as a CEO cannot, and is not supposed to, tell that story of exactly what we're going to do in the next 5 years, like it was a highway. Yeah. It's much more about not knowing everything and embracing that and acknowledging and being open about not knowing all the solutions, but still having a conviction that we're going to get there and we're going to do that together. And along the way, we're going to find the solutions. So, yeah, it's not about cracking the code, but catching the rhythm. I think that can be applied to many parts of life.
That's a good one. If you had to recommend somebody that was looking to have a leadership career or has a leadership career in our industry, if you had to recommend a book or, I don't know, anything like that, any type of media, is there something that stands out to you that's been particularly important for you or something that you enjoy?
There's a podcast series that I'm in love with. That's Life Worlds.
Okay.
By Alexa Feminich. It's from a curiosity point of view, I guess, tapping into the knowledge and wisdom of tons of different people who are tapping into the natural system, finding solutions. And it's very, very broad. It can be everything from meditation, like a deep ecology meditation, to a scientist finding a solution for noise pollution. And it's amazing. I love it. That's one. And when it comes to books, I would recommend, there's so many books to recommend, but Nils Forlund, which is a dear friend of mine and ours. He's also a fellow mountaineer. He used to climb with Arne Næss. So he's a very old man and wise man, but he is an engineer, but he ended up moving towards becoming a mountain guide, and in a way an activist, but for sure a philosopher, bringing eco-philosophy or deep ecology to the world. And his books, Nils Forlund is his name.
Okay, and what's the name of the book? Do you remember?
Several books.
Okay.
Yeah, but any one of them. And Arne Næss is also... so the deep ecology philosophy, I think that is for sure something to get acquainted with. Makes total sense for most of us as humans. Maybe not all of us. Maybe not Donald Trump. So
looking back over your career, what's been the biggest challenge that you've had to face, and what lessons did you learn from that?
The most difficult thing, I think, has been balancing, bringing up a family and having kids, and then having this mission or whatever at work that feels really, really important, not only for me and for the success of Houdini, but in a more profound way, that we need to shift the world because we have kids who are going to bring to live their life in the world that we have been shaping. So, that balance of being here now for them and doing what I can to create a future for them. That has been tough, I think, and is still tough. It can almost make me cry because that's a balancing act that I'm continuously working on.
Well, I think you've already maybe answered the next question. The next question was going to be, if you could give future leaders 3 pieces of advice, what would you give them? I mean, you've already given so many, but anything that you would add, maybe?
Yeah, well, I think that I will choose one, and I'm sitting here thinking that this is kind of awkward because who am I to give advice to your listeners? But anyways, I have experienced nature quests, which is more like, it's not about only going out into nature, enjoying it, but rather going out into nature as a meditative thing, exercise kind of, and do it for 24 or 1 or 2 days, and becoming kind of part of the place you're in, and experiencing something that is much more of me being part of something much bigger, and not at all the center, but rather, a guest in this wonderfully, constantly evolving, perfectly functioning system with so many living species that are doing all this wonderful stuff all the time. That is, to me, an amazing experience that I can advise everybody, including CEOs, to try out. And if you don't have 24 hours or so, just going out and finding a sit spot where you can actually just sit and meditate and get this immersive experience of nature and your small part in this big, wonderful world we're in.
So if today was your last day, you were going to hang up your CEO hat and step away from Houdini and retire in the mountains somewhere, what would your message be, your final message be to your team?
Keep all the great work up, and enjoy, and thank you. I'm so grateful for all the days that we've had together. And to the one taking my place, I don't know. I think it won't. I think it's time,
Gosh.
And I came in. I know what I'm good at, and nowadays I'm doing a lot of things that I'm not at all that good at, and I spend a lot more time doing kind of those things that I'm not that good at, not passionate about in the same way. So I probably wouldn't disappear up into the mountains, but rather focus on what I really truly believe I can contribute with. But yes, so passing the torch, I think that's a good thing. I'm not at all afraid of that.
Yeah.
And it's part of evolution as well. Yeah. And an organism like Houdini needs to evolve, and having certain individuals clinging onto a position, it's not healthy at all. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Eva. So for the audience members that are still here at the end, I have to doubly thank you, because this is actually the second time we've recorded this. We recorded this in, I think it was March
in London.
London, and we had big audio problems, so we couldn't put it out. So a double thank you for really taking the time and sharing. It's been great chatting with you again. Thanks for sharing so many great insights and experiences.
Double thank you to you as well.
You're welcome. Take care. Thanks, Eva.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Eva. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you could please leave us a review or comment. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe or follow, as it helps with the algorithm. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to seeing you soon for the next Sports and Outdoor Mentors episode.